You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Forget the lies, the money. We're in this together and through it all. They said nothing's forever, and they refuse to see the change in me. Why won't they wake up? Come on, come on, come on. Let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Hey yo soldiers, back once again with Reliving the War. It's September 11th, 2000, Raw's in Phoenix, Arizona, while Nitro's in Charlotte, North Carolina. A surprise episode of Reliving the War Thunder dropped on Sunday. It's like the Christmas surprise you didn't want, but you have to pretend you really liked it. Do check it out though, because I thought it was a pretty fun episode of Thunder, plus it featured a great Bret Hart and Bill Goldberg promo. Bret will no longer be part of WCW as we move towards the finish line, so thank you for your service, Hitman. David Flair's getting married tonight on Nitro. Crowbar wants to put the past behind him, and Daphne's even cool with Dirty Dave marrying Miss Hancock. David wants to know if his dad showed up though, and Daphne says she doesn't know. It's gonna be a night of utter bollocks, and I'm here for it. I live for this nonsense. So sit back, grab your favourite stress relief toy, and let's enjoy this week's episodes of Raw and Nitro. Commissioner Mick Foley cuts a promo to open up Raw while Nitro presents KroniK vs Ray and Hoovy. Mick's here to talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin did indeed appear on SmackDown via satellite, and he wants the person who ran him over last year to make themselves known. If the culprit doesn't reveal themselves by the time WWF Unforgiven comes around, then Austin will interrogate every superstar on the roster at the pay-per-view. Foley recaps what Austin said on SmackDown. He also confirms that Stone Cold is not at Raw tonight and the fans didn't appreciate it. But Mick wants to begin his own formal interrogations. The way Mick sees it, it'll be a lot easier for the driver of the car to admit what he did to Mick rather than deal with the Texas rattlesnake. So Foley wants Mr. Psycho Mick Crashy Car to come forward and just admit to, attempted murder. Mick says, come out wherever you are. The culprit needs to make themselves known and face the music. And that's when The Rock's music plays in the arena. Did the Great One actually run down Stone Cold? Remember, it was The Rock's rental car, and Rock had a lot to gain from Stone Cold getting taken out of the picture. Though when Mick gets a bit aggressive and when he's about to call Rock some very bad names, Rock puts his hand up and he admits it. He admits that this is the biggest half-assed criminal investigation The Rock's ever seen. Rock says no, he didn't run Austin over. He actually says, oh hell no, which gets a pop. And it sounds like Rock would prefer Austin conducting his own investigation at Unforgiven. Rock wants to see Austin deal with the culprit the Stone Cold way. Rock's here because he wants payback. Kane chokeslammed Rock through a table on SmackDown, and Rock doesn't care if Kane's body's on fire, his face is on fire, or if his liar balls are on fire. Rock wants Kane named as the #1 contender, and he wants to face Kane at Unforgiven. Chris Benoit comes out to protest this. Benoit feels that he should be #1 contender, seeing as Chris is the absolute best wrestler in the world. Benoit's defeated Rock in the past. That's a bit debatable. But Benoit wants this title opportunity at Unforgiven. Kane comes out, he says nothing, which is surprising after last week. The guy wouldn't shut up. And here's the Undertaker. Undertaker says no one should forget about the old dead man when talking about the #1 contender. And then all hell breaks loose as Taker fights Kane and Benoit fights Rock. Foley ends up taking a bump when Kane throws a clothesline, and after a break, Foley says he's been hurt a lot worse than this, and he promises to name the #1 contender by the end of Raw tonight. He also books Chris Benoit and Kane versus Undertaker and Rock in a tag team match, and that match will be our Raw main event. On Nitro, it was actually Disco Inferno who put Ray and Hoovy into this tag team match against KroniK, something that the rest of the animals didn't seem too happy about. Poor Juventud got annihilated in the early going with Adams performing an F5, though the animals were able to pull off a double suplex. Adams answered right away with a double clothesline. I'm noticing here how dark the arena is for Nitro tonight. A lot of empty seats unfortunately, and remember, we're in Charlotte, North Carolina. Rey Mysterio takes a ridiculous full Nelson slam from Adams, but hold up, here comes the Bozo brothers with a camcorder, no idea why. The other Harris brother takes a WCW production camera and Adams gets wiped out. Disco, meanwhile, delivers a chartbuster to Clark while the referee's distracted. Ray pulls off a springboard dropkick and we see Hoovie's 450, but still Clark kicks out at 2. The Animals refocus, they perform the Nutcracker, and the Filthy Animals retain their tag team belts. A decent enough opener, just could have done without the Harris brothers. The commentators on Nitro explained that Vince Russo suffered a concussion during War Games 2000 last week. We'll get an update on Russo's condition later in the show. This also means Ernest Miller's in control tonight and he's cutting a promo next on Nitro. On Raw, we've got the Dudleys versus the Hardys and a Lita versus Ivory Women's Championship match. Miss Jones is here with Ernest Miller, and the cat says Vince Russo tried to get his job taken away from him, but the courts threw the case out. Imagine going to court over WCW's commissionership. Miller confirms he's now in charge, and he only goes ahead and makes the Booker T vs Kevin Nash Fall Brawl main event a steel cage match. And he also books Kevin in a title match tonight against his buddy Big Papa Pump Scotty Steiner. As for old slap-ass Jeff Jarrett, Miss Jones grabs the microphone and she says she wants to face Double J tonight on Nitro. She says she's going to put her foot all up Jarrett's ass, and by the way, this stems from Jarrett hitting Miss Jones with a guitar. Jarrett comes out, he accepts the challenge, and to prove that men are superior to women, Jeff's going to wrestle this upcoming match with his hands cuffed. Jarrett also says he, Steiner and Nash are going to show Miller who's really in charge during tonight's broadcast, and after Miller tells Miss Jones to leave the ring, a fight breaks out, a fight that the cat loses when Scotty Steiner shows up. Miller gets beaten down, he gets put in the Steiner recliner, but never fear because Miller has some backup arriving in just a moment. On Raw, as much as I praise the WWF's tag team division and how well the WWF's created bona fide superstars out of these younger wrestlers, it does feel like they get put in matches during the first half hour of Raw on a pretty consistent basis. I'm not really criticising the booking, but it's more of an observation. Again, we have Edge and Christian providing commentary, and I'm sure we've seen this exact setup before. The difference here though is that this one was for a shot at the tag team belts at Unforgiven. ENC didn't want the Hardys to win, so Edge hit Matt with his tag team belt. This resulted in Matt falling on top of Bubba, and the Hardys actually ended up winning. So it's going to be the Hardy Boys getting a title match at Unforgiven. The Dudleys get some revenge by delivering the "What's Up" headbutt on Christian, while Edge got 3D'd through a table. Nearly. So not a great night for the tag team champions. Lita then defended her women's championship belt against Ivory. The match only reached the 2-minute mark, though it looked like Ivory was about to win it. That was until Naked Midian showed up, and I'm guessing he's just going to ignore what Mick Foley said to him last week. The distraction allows Lita to hit a twist of fate, which looked fine. Her moonsault, however, was slightly off mark. Still, Lita successfully defends her belt, and Raw moves on. We've got some backstage shenanigans to check out next on Nitro, while Raw presents Too Cool vs Eddie Guerrero in Chyna. On SmackDown, Eddie Guerrero gaslit his Mamacita big time when Chyna confronted him about the sneaky smile on Raw last week. Eddie screamed that the belt means nothing to him, and he reminded Chyna about how he's always had her back and he expects the same from her. And so he went out to the ring and Chyna helped Eddie score a win over Road Dogg. Chyna and Road Dogg still consider themselves friends, and Chyna wasn't happy that Eddie attacked Jesse after the bell. Anyway, back to Raw. Eddie walks into Chyna's dressing room and he tries to sweet talk her. He apologises for what he did on SmackDown. He felt he was about to lose his Mamacita. Chyna wants Eddie to control his temper, and Eddie says Chyna's absolutely right. Chyna forgives Eddie. The pair get excited for an upcoming match, though Chyna seems a bit disappointed that the pair are going to face Scotty 2 Hotty and Grandmaster Sexy. Fans in the arena chant Eddie sucks as the action gets underway. The audience in Phoenix aren't buying Eddie's apology, and I don't know what's wrong with these people. Eddie's being 100% genuine. After delivering a dropkick, Grandmaster tags in Scotty. Latino Heat takes a few shots in the corner, and things don't improve when Scotty performs a flying crossbody and a back suplex. Eddie needs to tag in Chyna. Chyna's ready to get in the ring, but Guerrero has second thoughts and he decides not to tag his partner in. This results in Chyna getting knocked off the apron when Christopher picks up Eddie for a body slam, and Scotty then shows his worm to the live sold out audience at Raw. Chyna gets in the ring, she sends Scotty out with a clothesline. She then tries to explain herself to Scotty while Christopher performs a hip hop drop on Guerrero, and Too Cool win the match. Chyna was not there to break up the cover. Eddie seemingly takes the loss well. He wants to show there's no hard feelings by dancing with Too Cool. So all four get their groove on, though Latino Heat had a plan. He always has a plan. During the dance, he slides out of the ring, he grabs his IC belt, and Too Cool get wiped out, much to Chyna's dismay. This leads to Rikishi coming down to get a piece of Eddie, and Chyna has a decision to make. She can save Eddie, or she can let Rikishi shove his stinky fart box right in Latino Heat's face. In the end, Chyna decided to hit Rikishi with the Intercontinental belt, and Eddie thinks everything's all good, but the two then get backstage and Chyna drops a bombshell on Guerrero. She's gonna get featured in Playboy magazine. Eddie thinks it could be just an interview or a few tasteful pictures with Chyna in her negligee, but no, the mama jammas are coming out along with Chyna's goo canoe. Eddie's absolutely beside himself and he's worried about what his friends and family might think. And Eddie says he'll storm the Playboy mansion and beat up Hugh Hefner if it means the photos don't get taken. On Nitro, Ernest Miller's backup arrives, Booker T and Sting. Miller says the boys need to join forces or the cat's going to lose control of Nitro, and Sting says, calm down son, Nitro's just fine and dandy. The three go off to find Jarrett and company. These boys are having a good laugh about what happened to Miller earlier, and the babyfaces storm the locker room. Miller says if Nash and Steiner don't wrestle later, their contracts will get terminated tonight on Nitro. And Nash says it's fine, he will defend his belt against Steiner in our main event. We then see David Flair getting ready for his wedding. I think Crowbar's the best man, even though the two just made up when Nitro went on the air. Stacy, meanwhile, is with her mother and she gets a visit from Jimmy Hart. Jimmy gives Miss Hancock a registered letter. She doesn't read it, so yeah, something's up guys. Something's gonna happen. A giant 70s shaggin' wagon pulls up to the arena and out comes Mike Awesome. Mike does not have a match tonight, but he will find himself in trouble a bit later on. And we then go back to Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner. Scott's really angry about this match booking, but Nash is playing it cool. Scotty says Nash is sitting here like Jimmy Buffett in his sandals and Kev's way too calm right now, but Nash has a plan. He wants to reenact the finger poke of doom and he wants Scotty to lay down. This must have been difficult for Scott to comprehend, so Nash grabs a marker and we get an illustration. Nash, with his 3 legs, versus Scott Steiner. Steiner complains he's too small, so Nash makes him a bit bigger, totally fucking up his delts, but that's okay. Kev's going to use his finger to push Scott. Scott goes down. Nash covers Scott for the 1, 2, 3.
Hit my music!
Steiner says, nah, that doesn't sound right. Scotty wants to draw, and he thinks that he should push Nash down, and Kev should go down for the pin.
1, 2, 3. I go, and I'm the champ.
The boys can't come to an agreement, so maybe we won't see a finger poke of doom after all. Fantastic work from Kev and Scott here, by the way. This was pretty funny. Vito and Reno competed in a stickball bat on a pole match in the middle of our backstage shenanigans, and it wasn't good. Chuck Palumbo got involved, which led to a referee bump. Vito was able to grab the stickball bat, but with the referee out, it really didn't matter. Johnny the Bull ran down, and we all thought Johnny was here to help his old Mama Luke teammate, but Johnny turned on Vito, and Reno won the match. Johnny the Bull is now part of the Natural Born Thrillers, and it all ended with the faction giving Vito another beating. Vito gets a chance at revenge when he joins the Filthy Animals this week at Fall Brawl to take on the Thrillers in a big elimination match. Next on Nitro, we've got Torrie Wilson versus Madusa, while Triple H has a match against Chris Jericho on Raw. Yeah, I spoiled this last week during the credit roll, sorry. Jericho was a mystery opponent for Triple H. Mick Foley didn't tell Hunter who he was going to face, and the reveal happened when the Y2J countdown appeared on the Titantron. Y2J thinks Hunter's no stranger to surprises. It must have been a surprise when Kurt Angle kissed his wife. It must have been a surprise when Stephanie looked like she enjoyed it. Though Chris doesn't care about all that. He gets in the ring to begin the match and things are pretty heated during the initial lockup. The two shove each other, they lay in a few punches. Hunter falls to Jericho's flying forearm, though Chris gets dumped out of the ring with a back body drop. Hunter told Stephanie to stay in the back, and so she's not here to oversee the action on the outside. Jericho takes a guardrail and ring post bump. Triple H takes the springboard dropkick. The two have a brief fight in the audience, and Jericho performs a top rope back elbow when the two get back in the ring. Hunter has it won after delivering a high knee. He sets Jericho up for the pedigree, but then Stephanie shows up and this puts Hunter off his game. Jericho tries to use this to his advantage, though he fails at locking in the walls, and Triple H also stops a lion salt by getting his knees up. Kurt Angle appears. He tries to take Stephanie back up the ramp. Hunter goes after Steph after delivering the facebreaker knee smash, and while these three argue at the rampway, X-Pac gets in the ring and he attacks Jericho. Y2J takes an X Factor, the referee calls for the bell, and Hunter's not happy that his friend cost him the match. Hunter gets in X-Pac's face, the two push each other and they talk a little smack. Hunter ends up shoving Pac down to the mat, and so DX continues to deteriorate. I mean, is DX even a thing anymore after X-Pac and Road Dogg had that match at SummerSlam? I really don't know. Madusa backed up Billy Kidman on Thunder this past week, and tonight she wants a piece of Torrie Wilson. She says she trained Torrie and all the other girls who were hired by the company based on their looks, and Madusa wanted to show Torrie what it meant to be a real woman in WCW. Absolutely nothing happened in the match. Torrie got pulled into the ring and Madusa performed a suplex before Shane Douglas appeared. Shane took a punch to the jaw before Madusa missed a middle rope dropkick, and so the referee called for the bell and the official took a franchiser. Shane gave Madusa a belly to belly, he then put her in an STF, Billy Kidman ran down for the save and the ring got cleared out. Madusa then issues a challenge. She wants to change the Pittsburgh Plunge scaffold match to a tag team affair. Madusa and Kidman versus Torrie and Douglas. Shane and Torrie do accept, so there you go. More people to potentially throw off the scaffold this Sunday at Fall Brawl. The Jeff Jarrett vs Miss Jones match took place next. The Cat handcuffed Jarrett and he got in a few cheap shots before Miss Jones told him to back off. Jones brought it to Jeff and the commentators were surprised by her abilities, as limited as they may have been. And Jeff's in trouble as Miss Jones beats him both inside and outside the ring. The referee gets kicked in the nuts, Jarrett gets punched in the slap nuts. Jonesy wants to use Jarrett's guitar, but Jeff manages to take it away and Cat's valet takes a shot. Jeff wins via pinfall, and before he can do any more damage, Mike Awesome runs down to give Jeff a beating. Not sure why the Cat didn't come out to help here, but do keep in mind Awesome and Jarrett have that bunkhouse brawl coming up at Fall Brawl. Jeff goes backstage and Nash complains about Steiner. Jeff explains that Steiner's not going to lay down for him, but Kev wants Double J to go speak with Big Papa Pump and sort this all out. Hacksaw Jim Duggan's going to cut a promo next on Nitro while the WWF presents the right to censor versus the Acolytes. And Jim came out here to announce his retirement. A pro wrestling retirement. Don't believe it for a minute. Hacksaw talks about winning the toughest fight of his life when he overcame cancer, but after watching Nitro at home these past few weeks, he realised there's one opponent he'll never beat, and that's Father Time. Hacksaw knows he can't keep up with the young guys anymore, so he's officially announcing his retirement. Jim wanted a young, strong and tough superstar to carry the Stars and Stripes moving forward. He wanted someone to represent the great country of America. And I giggled a little when Hacksaw wanted General Rection to come down and take the flag. It was all very emotional and serious, and then he said General Rection. The torch gets passed. The General now fights for the rights of every man. And Lance Storm comes out to say this is all nonsense. He says nobody gives a damn about Hacksaw, nobody gives a damn about this country, and as for the General, we get some of that classic WCW booking when Lance challenges Rection to a match right now on Nitro. Keep in mind, these two are scheduled to face each other at Fall Brawl this week. Highlights of this one included the General's sit-down powerbomb, Lance applying the Canadian Maple Leaf, and Major Guns jumping up and down. Lance attacked Duggan on the outside, and this led to Hacksaw hitting Lance with his 2x4. So the General defeats Storm in this non-title match. At Fall Brawl, both the Canadian Championship and Major Guns will be up for grabs, so the stakes are going to be higher at the pay-per-view. On Raw, we got a pretty standard tag team match between the Acolytes and the Right to Censor. No one really got the upper hand, but I do enjoy watching these guys beat the snot out of each other, particularly Bradshaw and Farouk. Val Venus appeared on the entranceway. Remember, Val got abducted by the RTC last week, and so we naturally assume he's here to get revenge. Venus slowly made his way down to the ring apron, and the match ended in a rather abrupt way when Farouk took a kick from the Goodfather and Buchanan held Simmons down for the 3 count. The finish was unexpected, and even the commentators were taken back when the RTC won. Venus gets in the ring, he takes out Bradshaw and Farouk with chair shots. There's a gasp from the audience as they realise what's happened. Val Venus has become a member of the Right to Censor. Stevie Richards gets in the ring, he's wearing that big creepy smile on his face, and he shakes Venus's hand before the faction head up the ramp. I honestly think it's a good move putting Venus in this group. I don't think he made for a very good serious type of heel, so having this righteous gimmick surrounding him can only be an improvement. He needs something more than just being a straight up, no nonsense bad guy. It's time for the wedding of the century. David and Miss Hancock are going to tie the knot on Nitro. On Raw we've got Al Snow versus Tazz. Al Snow defeated Perry Saturn for the European title, and he's out here representing the great country of Germany. He's got on a new outfit, he's brought a framed picture of David Hasselhoff because Germany just loves the Hoff, but most importantly, he's brought some big bratwursts. Tazz isn't in the mood for this tomfoolery. He suplexes Al out of his boots at the opening bell, but Snow fires back with a suplex of his own. Tazz then takes the snow bomb as Jerry Lawler watches on intently. Al then goes up for a moonsault, but he didn't hit his target at all. And we then have a referee bump when Snow tries to avoid the Tazz mission. The two head outside. Tazz throws Snow right on top of the king. Jerry isn't going to take this lying down, so he gets up and he smashes the David Hasselhoff picture over Tazz's head. Has to be one of the weirdest weapons ever used in pro wrestling. Snow wins the match, he heads up the ramp, and Tazz says that's it, no more messing around. Tazz understands that he can't compete with Jerry's backstage political game. He understands that no one wanted him in the WWF to begin with. So Tazz is topping out, and he says he's just another victim of the World Wrestling Federation. What this means we don't know, but it looks like Tazz could be done with the WWF, and he's admitting he couldn't play the political game that comes with being a WWF superstar. It's weird. But enough of all that interesting stuff, we've got a wedding to attend, so at ease soldiers, break out the champagne and let's celebrate our boy David becoming a man. Dave's going to be a whole new person next week on Nitro. The happy couple are in the ring. David says he's let a lot of people down since becoming a WCW superstar, and he wants to make things right. So he invites Arn Anderson to come down to the ring first, and my god, it's been so long since I've heard that Horseman theme song. It's so good. Anderson says David cleans up pretty good, but AA has a few words of wisdom for young Dave. First of all, Arn says it's easier to get forgiveness than it is to get permission, so he just needs to grovel to Stacy the day after he goes out with the boys or when he stays up all night playing Final Fantasy VII. Arn also suggests that David takes some of the gift money he and Stacy are going to receive tonight and he keeps some of that money in his back pocket, you know, for Doritos and a new PlayStation controller. Top advice right here from the Enforcer, he wasn't a horseman for nothing. David then tells Ric Flair to come on down. Ric's actually the best man and not Crowbar. And yeah, he's here with a brand new haircut, seeing as Russo and David shaved it off the last time Ric was in a wrestling ring. He's actually rocking the David Flair look. The student becomes the master. Ric wants to be just like his son. Ric says the Flair family have put things behind him. He's a proud father tonight. His son's getting married to a lovely woman. It's all about David and he thanks everyone for coming, so no styling and profiling. As the ceremony gets started, a bunch of cops walk down the rampway and these boys aren't here to throw confetti. Officer Buttmunch gets in the ring and he informs Ric that Vince Russo has a restraining order on Ric, and apparently that restraining order extends the WCW arenas and buildings where WCW conducts serious business. The Nature Boy's currently breaking that restraining order, so he has to get in a cop car and he has to take a trip downtown. Ric has no choice. The big day's been ruined as the Nature Boy gets put in cuffs. Slick Ric gets brought up the rampway and Stacy looks distraught. So distraught that she leaves David at the altar and she follows Ric up the entranceway. So what's going on here then? Ric gets put in the cop car. Arn says he'll take care of David before coming to take care of Ric. And we then go back to the commentary table where we get that one famous line from Tony Schiavone.
Never mind the
Vince
wedding.
Russo has struck again.
Speaking of Russo, we get an update from Vince's doctor, like if anyone cares. Doc says Vince had a blood clot in the lower portion of his brain. He suffered from severe vision issues. He went through 3 concussions while in the ring, one of which was caused when Ernest Miller kicked him in War Games, while Russo was wearing a hockey helmet. Check it out, this is the brain of Vince Russo. It's filled with work shoots, swerves, and a lot of bros. Yep, this is Russo's brain, and not the brain of one Arthur Flanagan. Russo is currently resting well, he's doing good in recovery, and Tony Schiavone says this is all bullshit. Tony Jabroni isn't buying it at all. Shout out to Arthur Flanagan though, I hope he's doing alright. Earlier on, Kurt Angle wanted to know how Mick Foley was feeling, and Mick appreciated Kurt's insincerity. Angle wanted to do something Triple H couldn't do, beat TNA all on his own. You see, Triple H wrestled Test and Albert on SmackDown, and Angle took credit for Hunter's win after getting himself involved. So, in another effort to impress Stephanie McMahon, Kurt faces TNA next on Raw, while WCW presents Sting versus the Harris Brothers. Angle dedicates this match to all the men and women trying to get themselves gold medals at the Olympic Games, and he also dedicates this match to his good friend Stephanie McMahon. Out comes TNA, and Test has some new ring gear tonight. Totally forgot he wore red at one point. The match gets underway. Albert brings it to Kurt. Angle does manage to suplex Albert, but Test almost takes his head off with a big boot. Hunter and Steph are watching backstage. Hunter's really enjoying seeing Kurt get mangled, and the match continues on with Kurt taking more and more punishment. It looks like he hasn't got a chance here. Test performs a full Nelson slam before sending Angle to the outside. Hunter's still laughing backstage, but he notices Stephanie's just left the room, and this must mean she's going out to check on Kurt. Old Hunter's getting totally played by his wife. Stephanie does indeed run down the ramp. Trish was getting in a few cheap shots, and so Steph comes to Angle's aid. Test and Albert get Stephanie in the ring, and it looks like she's about to take a powerbomb. So Hunter runs down to save the day, and the bell rings. It's a DQ finish. Kurt and Hunter end up fighting together. They both go after TNA, and they send the boys out of the ring. Angle checks on Steph while Hunter's keeping his eye on the rampway, and when Triple H turns his head, there's a gasp in the audience. Hunter's gonna wreck Angle, and he starts by sending him to the other side of the ring. When Steph tries to break things up, Hunter shoves her to the mat. She gets back up and she ends up smacking the referee. Hunter brings Angle down with a spear, and when these two get back up, they start taking out more referees. Hunter looks to end it once and for all, and he wants to pedigree Angle. Stephanie tries to stop Hunter. The game inadvertently hits his own wife with a back elbow because he thought she was a referee, a very slender referee. Angle grabs Triple H and the two start fighting again, and Angle hits Hunter so hard that the game drops an elbow on Steph. Yeah, you couldn't make it up, it just keeps getting worse and worse. Steph takes another bump when Hunter throws Angle into her. We think it's all resolved and Angle gets tossed out of the ring. Hunter lifts his wife up and he tries to carry her to safety, but Angle attacks again on the entranceway, and the crowd are loving every moment of this. This is easily the loudest they've been all night, and just when I thought this storyline was beginning to flounder or cool off a bit, the guys have WWF fans in the palm of their hands again. Backstage, Foley says this has gotten out of hand. Mick wants to end it once and for all, so he books Triple H versus Kurt Angle at Unforgiven. Foley's going to serve as the special referee, and Hunter says that's fine as long as Foley doesn't stop the match no matter what Triple H does. Foley knows what Hunter's capable of, and Mick promises he won't end the match early. Sting versus the Harris Brothers was a solid 2.5 minutes. Mark Madden said that Russo booked this match from his hospital bed, which totally contradicts what Ernest Miller said earlier, but who cares. The Bozo brothers wanted to use chains, seeing as they've got a chain match against KroniK at Fall Brawl, and after Sting dished out Stinger splashes, he applied the deathlock and then the chains came into play. Sting gets choked out, he gets clobbered, KroniK run down for the save, and no joke, all they did was choke the Harris boys out. Nothing very creative here considering the weapons being used, and Schiavone said, well, I guess it was a no DQ match when Sting won via pinfall. You genuinely get the impression that the commentators have no idea what's going on, and that's because they probably don't have any idea what's going on. Jeff Jarrett tries to reason with Big Papa Pump, but Scott doesn't want to hear it. He will face Kevin Nash tonight, and he won't lay down for him either. The shitty stench of another swerve is really strong, folks. We can't get through an episode of Nitro without one. David apologises to Miss Hancock. He apologises for his dad. He wants to go back out there and get married, but Stacy says they've had too much bad luck. Miss Hancock wants to reschedule the wedding, but David's like, nah, don't think so, sweetheart. So we've got the Wedding of the Century Part 2 next on Nitro, while Raw presents Steve Blackman versus X-Pac. I'm not sure what to be more excited about. So Stacy walks down the aisle again. David's licking his lips at the thought of marrying this woman. The wedding officiant is seriously over the top.
We are gathered here tonight in the sight of God and in the witness of this great and holy congregation.
It looks like David's actually corpsing here, and I've no idea how he didn't bust out laughing at this gab shite. Should anyone think these two shouldn't get married, they should speak now or forever hold their peace. Loads of fans raise their hands, but these people don't count. Stacy raises her hand, and yeah, she counts, I think. She says something's been eating at her all day. Ric Flair. No, I'm joking. Stacy says she needs to tell David something. That baby in her belly welly, that sperm that fertilized the Hancock egg, yeah, not David's. Someone else knocked it into Stacy, and that means young David Flair is not the father. My. That letter Jimmy Hart gave Stacy, yeah, it must have been paternity test results. So does that mean Jimmy Hart's the dad?
He's an animal!
An animal! An animal!
Stacy runs away, she gets back in her limo and she drives off. And speaking of driving off, Mike Awesome's trying to get Pamela Polshock into his shaggin' wagon. This show just moved so fast, doesn't it? Mike gets attacked by Double J, and when Awesome fights back, the Natural Born Thrillers show up. Awesome gets wrecked, and Jeff wants him put on top of his own big bright bus. Awesome does not make another appearance tonight, but the bus certainly will. Right, we need some backstory for this match. Now that X-Pac's out of DX, I think, he wants to join another group. He signed up to join the Motherfuck Dojo, so this is his tryout match. If Pac can win the hardcore title, then he's in. If he loses, he has to take 50 lashes with Blackman's kendo stick. Blackman performs the best dropkick you've ever seen in your life before going outside to grab a trash can. X-Pac takes it away and Stevie takes a shot with the trash can lid, though Blackman kicks it right in Kid's face, and this is Sean's first lesson: expect the unexpected. Pac gets kneecapped, he takes a shot to the back of the head, and Steve innovates with a pop-up trash can lid shot. My god. Blackman wants to check the quality of that trash can, so he gets up close and personal with it. And he gets up close and personal with something else when taking a Bronco Buster. Steve says enough's enough. He uses a fire extinguisher before grabbing two of his favourite weapons, the deadly kendo stick and the nunchucks of mass destruction. Waltman gets beaten all the way up the rampway. Steve says it's time to party while swinging his big nunchucks around. I'm not joking either. But X-Pac kicks the trash can into Blackman's massive chest after throwing it at the lethal weapon. Kid takes the nunchucks, Jericho shows up to hit him with the kendo stick. No doubt Jericho's trying to worm his way into the dojo too, but this allows Steve to win the match, and so balance has been restored. Nothing like a good Blackman match at the end of Reliving the War. X-Pac attacks Jericho in the backstage area, so assume these two are going to face each other very soon, one-on-one. Scotty Steiner is going to prove he's the genetic freak at Fall Brawl when he faces Goldberg. He talks about how size does matter, and he uses his freaks as the perfect example. They don't have to wait for the Earth to rotate on a 47-degree axis so they can see the Big Dipper in the night sky. All they gotta do is call Big Papa Pump so he can go behind and do the bump and grind. This man is talking all sorts of bollocks, and I love it. Speaking of which, Chris Benoit was talking about how Kane was probably not the most popular kid at school, and how Kane didn't get along with others in his youth. That doesn't matter tonight because these two are joining forces to take on The Rock and Undertaker in our Raw main event. On Nitro, the Big Dipper himself gets a world title shot against Kevin Nash. Ernest Miller serves as our guest commentator, Booker T's our guest referee. Absolutely no way this one goes down without a hitch, and yeah, it gets chaotic. Booker T cuts a quick promo before the match. He promises to get his belt back inside the steel cage at Fall Brawl, and yeah, he says don't hate the player, hate the game. Scotty Steiner and Big Kev make their entrances, and we've got another surprise. Goldberg's our special guest ring enforcer. Goldberg knows all about the finger poke of doom. Nash gives Steiner the deadly finger poke, but Steiner doesn't go down. Scott pokes Kev. Kevin doesn't fall over either. So Nash decides he's going to head back up the ramp and the match is off. Scott pulls Kev back into the ring. Looks like these two are indeed going to go at it when Nash performs a sidewalk slam. Booker's very slow and going for the count, and this is pretty much where the physicality ends between Nash and Steiner. Scott does perform a Steiner line and an elbow drop on Nash, but Booker messes around again when counting, and Scott's having none of it. So Big Papa Pump attacks Booker, and that's the match over. What follows is Goldberg getting in the ring to help Booker, but Scotty hits Billy Boy with a low blow. Nash and Steiner then destroy Booker and Goldberg with chair shots on the outside and a focus on double team moves inside the ring. I'm not really sure why Goldberg and Booker T aren't fighting back, because it's not like they're outnumbered or anything, and it takes Ernest Miller to get involved before the babyfaces actually do fight back. Goldberg clobbers Scott, and this allows Booker to deliver an axe kick to Nash. In the ring, Goldberg plants Steiner with a power slam before hitting a spear. As the babyfaces gain the advantage, Mike Awesome's bus appears on the entranceway, and the Natural Born Thrillers show up. So we've got a 9 or 10 on 3 beatdown right here, and the babyfaces can't overcome the numbers. Booker T gets his head smashed into the windshield by Nash, the Thrillers handcuff Goldberg to the bus, and Nitro ends with Steiner hitting Goldberg with his lead pipe a few times while Billy Boy invites the punishment. Just before the show fades out, Goldberg actually breaks free, but we don't see what happened next. All in all, it's another pretty miserable main event from Nitro. Nash and Steiner talking about the match was actually better than the match itself. On Raw, The Undertaker says he isn't The Rock's friend, but he will be there for him tonight. He'll also be there for Rock when Foley announces the #1 contender, so the dead man must think he's going to Unforgiven to face the WWF champion. The competitors make their entrances, Mick Foley's on commentary. The crowd's really hot for this one, and you can sense the guys in the ring know it too. We've got Taker and Benoit starting us off, and Benoit gets planted with a power slam. Rock gets tagged in, huge pop right here for the great one. Benoit takes a back elbow, he then tries a clothesline, and Rock brings him down for a crippler crossface. Kane has to break the move up and Benoit tags out, and Kane does a little damage on the outside before hitting Rock inside the ring with a big boot. Standard fare follows as the heels keep the babyface away from his corner, and this really highlights how Edge, Christian, the Hardys and the Dudleys have kinda reinvented WWF tag wrestling. Those men are doing some good stuff even without being involved in gimmick matches, while other guys on the roster are doing the same formulaic tag matches we've seen over and over again. Absolutely not a knock on the talent in the ring right now, but we're just kinda waiting for the last minute or so to see the inevitable hot tag. Benoit delivers the diving headbutt, but he takes too long making the cover. Rock's able to get to his feet and he puts Benoit down with an overhead throw. Check it out, there's a fan getting manhandled by security outside the ring before Taker gets tagged in. Maybe he thought he could be #1 contender. In comes the dead man, the match breaks down, Kane gets sent out of the ring, he and Rock fight on the outside while Benoit takes a chokeslam, and Undertaker doesn't go for the cover, instead he wants to go for the last ride, and Kane's able to hit him with a clothesline. This in turn allows Benoit to win the match following a jackknife cover. Does this mean Benoit or Kane's the #1 contender? No, because as all 4 men fight in the ring, Mick Foley announces that all 4 of these guys are going to face each other at Unforgiven. Referees run down as Foley confirms it's going to be a fatal 4-way main event at the pay-per-view, and the crowd pops when the guys in the ring start taking out officials. Just before Raw ends, Taker delivers a chokeslam to Kane while Benoit takes a rock bottom. And that's Raw all wrapped up. This main event was better than Nitro's, but that's not saying much either. Raw wins Reliving the War this week. The Chyna and Eddie Guerrero stuff was good, along with the work Triple H, Stephanie and Angle took part in tonight. Nitro had the wedding, which was silly, yet still pretty entertaining. But that main event they put on kinda ruined the entire show. I really don't see how the ending of Nitro would entice people to buy Fall Brawl. And the thing is, WCW really should have tried a bit harder here because Fall Brawl actually isn't all that bad. Still, a win for Raw puts the WWF on 146 points. Nitro's on 82 and we've got 24 ties. Raw got a 5.8 in the TV ratings, Nitro got a 3.2. Well, that's another one done. Next up we've got Fall Brawl 2000, and as always you can watch the video right now along with the next episode of Reliving the War by joining up on Patreon or by becoming a channel member. Kevin Nash defends his world title against Booker T inside a steel cage. Mike Tenay checks up on David Flair and comedy ensues. We've got a huge Filthy Animals vs Natural Born Thrillers elimination match, and Goldberg finally gets his hands on Big Papa Pump when the two collide in the semi-main event. As mentioned, it's not a bad show for WCW 2000 standards, so come over on Sunday and we'll check it out. Thank you for watching, soldier. If you think I've earned it, please like the video, and please take care.